So we're at the point now where we're detailing our retail space. This is just a section of it. Since it's going to be quite a large store, we're only just looking into one small corner of it. You're going to choose which one you're going to use, either this diagram or this diagram. And whichever one you choose, you're going to have to deal with some empty space. What I did was bring my chair over, the one that was missing from this view with the table in it, and put in the built-in displays, a couple of built-in displays. And I kept basically essentially everything over here. I kept the banner in the right place, but you can change this about. It doesn't have to be exactly like that. And then I put some mannequins in this built-in rather than putting merchandise, and I put merchandise in here. So whichever one works best for you, that's the one you're going to start with, but plan on adding some more so that you can have a balanced space and not empty spaces. Even for my figure, I needed to find someone, and it fit pretty well with the figure that I had chosen already. There wasn't much to do to change him, but I needed the detail on the clothing, so do find references that are going to work for you. Also, I needed something for my light fixture. Everyone's got a light fixture, so you're going to need to find that. And I also needed them for my displays, how to lay my merchandise out, how it would look, how to draw these collars, all of those things, and my mannequins, my half mannequins, how to draw them. So rely on your references quite a lot. Also, it never occurred to me, but some of these shelves can be filled with boxes for shoes, so that was another way to fill up some of this space. If you don't, it's going to call attention to it. And that's not really where we want to be looking. We want to be looking at the whole space and how the whole thing is organized. Do rely on your references quite a lot. So I love this all wood because the concept for mine, it's very important to have a concept for the atmosphere you're trying to create. I wanted it to be almost like a tailor's. I called it Ezekiel, an old-fashioned traditional name, a biblical name, so I wanted that sort of atmosphere. And if it's all wood and leather, it will have that sort of appeal and look quite upscale, but modern as well. The suits are tight-legged and so on, so the merchandise will stand out from that austereness of the traditional square. Everything is really quite square. And I put the compass with my logo because it too is a traditional image. Visual icon. It's a traditional icon. And I have it as an inset in my tiles of my floor. You try to plan your balance as best you can. This is anything that's a circle is going to call a lot of attention. So you really have to repeat it so that it's not the only circle. So when I put this here, everything, all my attention went right there and nowhere else. So I had to balance it out with other ellipses and circles in other places to get that to balance, get the space to balance. So count on doing that. After you get everything in that you plan on, there's still going to be things you'll have to look at to make sure that it's all coming together. But the references will help. It will give you ideas. I had to have them to help with my mannequins as well. That helped me out there. So, and I needed something to help me with my banner. I wanted a large figure. I knew that. That's the key message here. So look at your references. It may look like we're finished, but we're not. We've got to map some shadows here and put in some hatching for our shadows. All the line weights are pretty similar. And what I want you to do is go back and to heavy up the outside lines. Leave the inside lines thin, but heavy up the outside lines. And I'll show you what to do with that in just a bit. The light source is going to be that large light over the table. So everyone's going to have that in their drawing. Now if you're working with this drawing, what that means for you is that you're going to need to find it, first of all. And how you do that is to use your vanishing point. Now we found that this was the center. If you'll remember, we made an X here and found that this was the center of our display over here. I'm using my vanishing point. Now, this was 3 feet on our floor plan. Remember, it was 3 feet. This is the center. So remember using that diagram. If I extend these lines, and I use this diagram, I go from this far corner at the back and through the center of this. That will give me the next 3 feet. And I have to go not just 3 more feet. Okay, there's 3 feet. And this is why I wanted you to bring all of these back so you can refer to them. So if you look here, the center of the table is where the light is hanging. So we need 3 more feet. 1, 2, 3. We've got that. And then we need 2.5 more. So I may as well go another 3. So I've gone another 3. And I'll just divide that into 3. And I'll get 2.5. So 2.5 is right here. So my light in this drawing is going to be that far away. Which will give us some good side lighting. So remember too, it's in the middle of the table. So again, we've got 1, 2, 3 feet. And then 1, 2.5 to the center of the table. So 3 feet, 2.5 to the center of the table. So that's the center of the table. And you have to take that now back to the wall. I'd take it to this wall because this is too distorted over there. So we're going to go all the way up to this wall, go up the wall, and go across. And bring this center of the table straight up. And that's going to give you the light source for your room. So anyone that used this drawing, you need to locate the center of the table by going 5.5 feet this way. Go take it back to the wall, go up the wall, bring it across, and join where the light is hitting the floor above the table to the ceiling. And that'll give you where your light is. And you can use this now to map out your shadows. On the chair, the shadow would be going this direction. On this little table, be going this direction. Now everybody should be really familiar now with how to do your shadows if you did some of the exercises from the last week. I take the dot on the ceiling and go through all of these heights now, all the top planes. And that will give me how long the shadows are. Now, if I don't like how long they are, because they're getting quite long over here, I can make them a little shorter. I don't have to go with this, but this is what the shadow would look like. And then it would go back this way. And then it would go up the box. And go across. So you just follow it. And it would probably stop there. Now, the top of the back of the chair against the wall will have a shadow. And you use the top dot to to give you that angle. And you can probably bring it over. You don't have to bring it over very far, just maybe what looks reasonable. Now, there are legs on the chair, so you would go to the farthest. Just remember, you use the bottom one to find the shape of the shadow on the floor, and the top one to find the shape of the shadow, the length of the shadow, essentially. So, and now I have to draw a line here. This is the shadow for that line on the chair. This is the shadow for the hidden line on the chair, of the leg of the chair. And this line is the shadow for that. So I had to, where this leg met this, gave me this line. So this is now the shadow for my chair. And this leg would have a shadow too. So that would be there. Now when you have a shadow attached like this, that side is all in shadow. So this whole side of the chair is going to be in shadow. And this is part of the shadow too. And this side of the arm is in shadow. And this is shadow. And the shadows help to hold the whole drawing together. And this is shadow too. But I don't think I would put it this far over, but you could put it. It might make it look dramatic though. As long as you don't put it in too heavy, that should be okay. And this side is in shadow. But you see, it starts to pull the whole drawing together. And to get the length of that shadow, you go from the top corner, just like we did here, top corner, see where it touches this line, as this is the shadow for that. So these are long shadows, I think because the light is so far away. But it's dramatic. Where they cross, then you know to go the other way. So I'm looking for the shadow for that line. So I use this vanishing point. And when it hits the wall, you go straight up. And this again is the top, so I'm using the top dot to do that. So that would be how that whole little section would play out. So you just need the top dot for these. This is a built-in, so that would be shadow all in here. Now you're going to have lights above too, so you might have a penumbra here. If this is, now you've got to remember this goes like this, so the center of that is not where you think it might be, but there would be a little bit of a penumbra in here. Even the square lights in our room cause this to look curved, so that would be round. This arm, it would have shadow too, so you'd have to go up here a little bit. Just go up on this a little bit so you're about the same height, and that would be in shadow too. And this would give you the shadow over here on the back. And this goes over to the back. So it's just the same as what we did in the little boxes that you did for homework. This now, if there's a light here, even if there is a light here, this is going to be in shadow. It washes the wall down below with light, but this would be in shadow. Okay, and the banner, probably it will just have a little bit. If it has some thickness, we could put a little bit of shadow underneath it to help pop it out a bit. You'd use your ruler, of course. Now for her, you do the same thing. Use that dot on the floor. And we wouldn't want to put too much shadow for her, and we don't want to make it too... you just kind of start a little bit of a shadow for her and let it taper off. It would actually go up the wall, but I don't think we're going to see all the way out there. That would be enough. And this one, she's behind the light, so that would be shadow out this way. And again, you wouldn't put too much. It would be her silhouette, her sideways silhouette. Depending on what's going on in here, you may not see it at all. And then, of course, walls, they all have the bit of the penumbra, because you can see on ceilings that they taper off into a little bit of shadow up here. But the way we're going to fill our shadows in, I'll show you. We're going to do some hatching. So, now this too is blocked, so this would be all lit up. There isn't actually shadow there. This now would have shadow too. Because remember, we built it out from the wall, so that's going to have shadow too, which will help set up the chair. Now, we wouldn't have known that, and that may not have been possible, depending on where this was in relation to it, but it's over to the side a little bit, so we will have shadow there. The shadow would probably go up the side of the chair and cover a little bit, but I wouldn't bother with that because we want the chair to stand out, so that we won't bother with that. And then this wall, it too would have a penumbra. The back of her, you see, would be in shadow, so it would just be the back part of her. And that leg would cast a shadow. And then the back, that would be in shadow, and the back of the hair. And then undersides are shadow too. We don't have too many of those. Okay, so that'll make a nice strong piece. And then on the floor too, but you're going to need to put something over there if you're using this side. And then this would be a little bit in shadow too. But so just ignore that part, because I just wanted to show the whole wall would get a penumbra. So that's this side. Now the other side, you're going to use the dot that's right under the table, directly under the table. A circle, it's just going to give you a bigger circle if the light is right over top of it. So you just extend the X and choose a dot. Use your vanishing points. And where it crosses your X, you go the other way. So you'll be able to find the bigger circle. Okay, and then you make your diagram, same old diagram, and that'll give you a bigger circle over top of your table, or underneath your table. So it's a little tricky because we've got all of this stuff going on, but and mine is solid, but I would use this same shadow. It's just a little larger. This comes from observation, so to give your drawing some real depth, the perspective does work, but you also need to light it. And if you do some sketches of things around you, you'll observe these things, and that'll help a lot to make things more convincing. So now there's not a lot in this drawing, but I put a chair over here. I'd have to put a box over here that's going to go with my chair. And it's 3 feet wide that I'm using. It's a big club chair, so it's 3 feet wide, and it's going to be 3 feet tall, so this is only 2.5 feet. So if that's 2.5, so 1, 2.5, and 3 would be about there. Maybe a little taller. I think I made it a little taller because it had that big back. Then I need to make a shadow for this box and see what that would look like. It's going to be a lot like the shadow I made for my this shadow. I'm assuming it'll be a lot like this one. And pretty much like the other chair's shadow. Okay, so I'll just leave it at that for now, just to see where the direction of the shadow is. That's the most important information, is what the direction of it will be. And this is out on a clear space too, where I'll be able to see the difference between the shadow for the arm and the back. So I'll just put up an arm quickly here. I'll just put one on this side. That's all I really need to get the shadow going. Okay, so that'll do for now, and I'll use my my point here where the light is. So I've got my two dots. I've got the one at the top and the one at the bottom very easily in this drawing. Now I'll just bring that over, and I can use the dot at the top, or I could use this dot at the bottom, the middle of the bottom. Whichever will give me a shorter shadow is what I'm interested in. So I don't want to have too long. So they cross there. So that's a little nicer looking than the big shadow that we had before. Although I like the drama of that one. It was kind of nice. So there's that. Now, to find the shadow for the arm, you have to bring it down to the floor and see where it would be on the floor, and then bring it along with your dot on the floor over like that. And it goes higher than the seat. So I just use my dot at the top to take the top of the arm to the floor, and it actually will be right where the wall hits. So the shape of that shadow will be, this is for the seat of the chair, and this leap up will be for the arm of the chair. So I have to have, it's kind of an interesting shape, bop, bop, bop. So, and then you go up to go this way, and then you just need the top dot to do the top of it. And that'll be the shadow for that chair. Now you have to modify it a little bit for your own design. May not be exactly like this, but it'll be similar. And then we'll just do this. So that's where the shadow would be on this chair. And shells generally, even if you don't see it, if the top dot isn't giving it to you, put a little angle like this, because there's always light above, and your shelves are always going to have some shadow in them like that. The banner, this is going this way, so it's going to have a little shadow behind it. That's all. And if he's all lit up in the front, then it's his side planes that are going to, the top planes are all lit, but the side of him, this side of him is in shadow. And probably below the knee, and then the top will be, of his foot will be in the light, but the side will be in shadow. And then this whole part of him is lit up, so you don't have to, maybe his arm might be in a little bit of shadow. And maybe below his leg a little bit. And then underneath him, the shadow's going to go. I usually just put a dot in the center and bring it over and bring the width of his legs over, and his shadow will be going like in this direction. And this one, again, you can use this one now and put a shadow there. Even remember, if you have a light in there, it's going to make a penumbra, but you'll have this part will be in shadow. These probably have a relationship to each other, so this penumbra probably starts like that, rather than going as far as I went initially. And this will be in shadow, so you use your dot again. This has a lot of shadow, if you even have a shelf here. I don't know if everybody will have. I think these things you can adjust them quite a lot. And the part that you don't get from the dot, you use the vanishing point. So if this is the shadow for that, then you have to use the vanishing point that you used to draw it in the first place. So there's that shadow. Okay, and this will get lit up. But my mannequins, their shadow, it would go behind them. So I know I have one standing here and one standing here. So just to plan it out, I'll plan it out here. And they will go back like that and go up the wall. So they go up the wall quite a bit further back than the mannequins themselves. And this one, it's in the light. So the light is in just lining up with it, so it's not going to have shadow over here. But if I could see through it, it would have shadow behind it. But I can't see through it. But these shelves, they would have some. So I can use this dot to give me a little bit of shadow in here. And then whatever else you plan to put in, you'll have to figure out what needs shadow. And then we'll just... And where it touches your shelf, you bring it across, and that'll give you more shadow in here. So part of this merchandise will be in shadow, part of it will be in the light. Anything that's sitting on the table, it's going to cast a shadow on either side of it. So if it's right in the center, again, it'll have, if it's round, it's going to have a shadow around it. If it's square, it'll have a little bit of a square on either side of it. So we'll have to look at that too. And this one, I don't think if it had an arm, let's see if it had an arm. We'll see if this would have a shadow. The light is here and it's hitting there, so it wouldn't have the shadow that we had over here. It wouldn't have that. And then there, of course, is the penumbra on the wall. And the penumbra on this wall. So now, how do you put that on your drawing? So after you get everything inked in, say a single weight of marker, because you want to keep a light weight for all your inside lines and a heavier weight on your outside lines. So after you get that all in, then you go back and you start to put in heavier outside lines. And if you're working on marker paper, and you are, it's probably better to use your Pentel sign pen. It's a better choice for this. And then you want to find a really skinny pen to do your hatching. We're going to do some hatching. So you saw how to do that, I think, in the last exercise. So I'm going to use my map now. This is my map for this side of the room. So I'm going to use it, and I know where the center of the table is. It's right there. I would use this dot to bring over my legs and then this leg as well. And then I'd use the top dot to the tip of the seat. So that's my top dot I'm going to use right there. That's right there. So now I know to go the other way. I don't have a vanishing point anymore, but I can tell from the tiles on my floor. Now if you put tiles or anything like that on your floor, you're going to need to use your vanishing points to map it out. Now hatching, as you know, is just vertical strokes, so you're going to put vertical lines to fill in the shapes of your shadow once you have it. And it's better to do it with a ruler, but use the thinnest pen you have for it. We don't want these to be too heavy. Now, I've got the shadow for my arm to do too. So that's the seat. The seat is right there. I don't have a vanishing point, so I have to... So you see how important it is to really get these lines correct, so that when you have to estimate something on this drawing, you'll know how to do it, because you've got enough guidelines down. Now, I have to bring the arm down. I'm just going to go up a little bit for the arm, maybe about there. And then go this way. And go up the wall. So you can keep them fairly simple, but and this goes like this a little bit. You just change the shape of them to fit what you're doing. Now this I should use my ruler for, but I don't want to take up all your time doing that. And I would just map in. Now remember, this is shadow 2, and even though, oh, and this would be 2, so I have to find a nice shape that would describe my arm and describe the side of my chair. And you do them all at once. The reason we use verticals is because that's the most predominant shape in the room. It will just blend in with all the other verticals, but it will lend this bit of contrast. And that's as far as we're going to take our drawing. We're just going to hatch in. And when you hand it in next week, you'll have it all inked in with thicker outside lines, thinner inside lines, and you'll have your hatching in and your shadows mapped. And that will be it. We'll be done. Now this, you see, it doesn't show an angle here for shadow, but I would put one in. We know there will be one in there, so you just go ahead. And this would be shadow, even though there'd be some shadow on the side here too. A little bit. I put some beams on my ceiling. You can do some things with your ceiling as well. It makes it a little more interesting too. So this now, it would be in shadow over here because the light is in the center. But this part isn't getting light, so that would create a nice shadow shape as well. And it would cast a shadow along here. Would make a box. Okay. Now when you go into heavy up your lines, after you get all your shadows mapped in, and you want to go back to heavy up your lines, I wouldn't heavy up anything inside the display. I'm just heavying up the outside of the display. And I still think the Pentel sign pen is the better choice for doing that. It's not quite so thick as this one, but it's missing, so I'll do it with this one. And please be very careful when you're drawing your perspective that it stays correct while you're transferring it to the marker paper. And the reason that we're doing this is because we want to read it quickly. We don't want to have to try to distinguish one thing from another when we're viewing it as a client or anyone else. We want to understand it as quickly as possible. So in kind of silhouetting certain things, you're helping the viewer make sense of things. Okay, that's a display built in the wall. That one is too, and so is this. And then there's a chair, big one, great big one, and just makes it more immediate piece of communication. So I would just outline the lines of the floor and the displays. I wouldn't do the molding at the bottom here because I want lots of wood, so I want lots of little detail. The more detail you put in, the better, but then when you go to do this part, you leave a lot of the detail unemphasized. You just emphasize what says one big wall, and I don't have to say anything about the molding. It's there enough, just enough. And I would go in and detail this wall. And I would detail the outside of my light fixture, my banner, this, and my round table. In this case, I would go right around what's on top of my table, and then I would go around my table. I go all the way around, but I wouldn't go inside. I'd just go to the outside, and I'd be using my ruler for this. Yeah, please use your ruler for everything except soft things. So you see, so that would read as a piece in front of that. That's very important too. Now this is my logo, and it should read with the lettering down below. Your logo has to be prominent. And as I was explaining, mine is a circle, so I had to be very careful where I put it. I had to balance it out with other circles. So if yours is round too, you'll have that challenge as well. You'll see it'll stick right out like a sore thumb that's all you'll be able to see. So just go around the outside of everything to create this silhouette. Now, do you always have to do this? No, later if you don't like it, but for this project you do. And you can cross your corners. That actually looks quite nice, and it gives you a more clean corner. So now, all of these things come from the discipline of architecture. They do all of this, and so it's become kind of a universally understood way to communicate certain ideas. But you can really see where I didn't use the ruler, and I should have done. But I did that on purpose, so you would see. And I would go in and outline my figure too, because he's part of the foreground. And I want him to read as what my customer base would essentially look like. Although I think women do a lot of this sort of shopping for guys, I'm not sure. In choosing my name, it's the name I would give my hamster or my guinea pig when I get them. I really liked it. But it's also because it's a traditional name, as I explained. And I want it to be able to be a formal sort of place, but also it could be short form to easies. I'm leaving, I'm going now. Where are you going? Going to Easy's, pick up sport coat for that thing. You know the thing? What thing? The thing, you know. So it could just short form it. That's what I was thinking as well. So you don't go inside, you just stick to the outside. Oh, I'm almost done. Might as well finish. And then maybe the thing will turn off and I'll be finished. But so, and then everything reads suddenly as a silhouette. I wouldn't outline that. I didn't fill it in the way I did this because that's just part of the floor. But and then with all our shadows hatched in, it will look very striking. And the shadows are very, very thin, hatched very, very thin. Okay, so that would be, now it's all filled in, and it does take a long time. It takes a very long time. To get the drawing to this point takes a really long time, so you'll be prepared for that. To do it properly, keep everything in perspective, it does take a long time. So we'll start in class today, and then you can finish it up at home. Hopefully if you have any questions, you can get them sorted now. So try all your pieces of furniture, all of your displays, give them a go so that if you have some questions, we can get them sorted. Okay, so I think I would have, that would be as far as I would go with the black pen.